Hi everyone, let's talk about Altiplano, and I think it's fantastic. I was a big fan of Rainer Stockhausen's last game Orléans anyway, and its various expansions when it got turned into a co-op game as well, and all of these extra modules. It had solo play, and it got loads of stuff added to a game that was already great to begin with. And this is, I was surprised by, because I hadn't really looked that far into it because I knew I wanted it from, well, the designer and his pedigree, but also, look at the cover, how could you not want it? I knew I was getting it anyway, so I hadn't looked that closely to it, but I was surprised when we played it how different it feels than Orléans, and that's, it's not really, it's a spiritual successor in the sense that it is a bag building game, but a lot of the stuff that you're doing in it feels incredibly different, rather than having, tracks and depending on which person you hire, it's all down to these goods and kind of trading these goods up for better things, but you keep hold of the old goods that you did that with. You can still increase the number of things you're drawing each turn by the path. I really, really like the idea of the warehouse as well, because it's, well, all of these different things working together. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of the stuff, but you can really try and focus. Like, you could really, really try and focus on filling that warehouse up. Just get a load of goods that you don't really care about and fill up the rows, and then really, really try and leverage the getting 4 goods in the 16, 20-point rows. They could be worth a lot towards the end. Or just focusing on orders. The downside of that is that you are giving up goods for the rest of the game, and they're not going to be worth points at the end. But the rewards are massive if you can do a few, 19, 14 points each, depending on what's come out, of course, because that's going to be a bit different each game. That is a small nitpick that I've got, that there are 10 of these or 12 in a 4 or 5 player game, and they are just, in a big pile, and you'd have to go through and try and work out, what you're having. It's just a small nitpick because it's not that hard to do, but it would be nice if it was just, a display of a few things, but I suppose that might bring luck into it all. But as I said, that's just a little nitpick. I like the idea of the boats as well, because you're kind of locked into a small area at the start of the game based on the role that you had, and you can pick the roles once you're more familiar with the game rather than having a random one. You're kind of given, you're given a starting set of resources and an action, and basically you need to go off and do this thing for a bit. Now, work out what else you're doing along the way and what extensions you want to pick up. But start with this. So my starting ability gives me an alpaca and some food, and it gives me the ability to turn it into a wool, to get wool from it every time I do that action. So it's in my interest, since I can do that and other people can't. Other people have to go to the village and spend an alpaca and a food. I can use the food for something different and start doing something else at the start of the game. So you want to start out really leveraging that, but the things that you're locked out of that you can't get, like alpacas, you need to get an extension, or you can get the boats. The boats have every single option on there, and so you can use this later on when you really need a good for an order, or you could use it earlier on to try and get, an alpaca. Now I can start getting these tiles a lot easier that you can. Like Marty started off with that ore that let him really, really start getting silver early on. Well, I could have, tried to get and that's what I was doing. I did do that, didn't I? I got the boat, got the ore, and then I could try and leverage that to do silver as well. You're not locked out of anything. You are just, put into different areas at the start of the game, and the boats are a nice way of doing that. The houses as well, did I mention already, the way it scores is really nice, that everything that you're doing is worth points. Well, some of the lower value tiles aren't worth anything unless you get a house for them, but generally everything you're doing is worth points. You are turning ore that is worth 2 points and a food into silver, which is then worth 3 points, which you can use to get money and get a load of extensions, which will then let you get even more tiles per round and try and stack up all of these things. So maybe you don't necessarily need to be hopping around the map every single turn, because all of your stuff is in the village and another location anyway, and you've got a free cart. It's a nice little system as well of how you're moving around. It's interesting where you don't necessarily have to be buying a lot of carts. If you can get that thing that Marty got where he could spend money instead, that was a really nice match for a player that can earn a lot of money at once and doesn't have to pay food. He can pay money instead, and can pay money to get certain tiles instead. There's a lot of different stuff going on, and yeah, there's going to be a lot of differences as well in the the extension tiles are going to be the same, but they're going to come out in a different order and change things up that way. And I imagine you know, more of these could be added in the future. But there's quite a few different role tiles. There's more missions than you need, so there's going to be a bit of variety in there, and the places are going to be in different order as well, which doesn't sound like that important, but you know, the general paying for food to move only lets you move one space, and depending on what you're adjacent to can really, you know, guide what can I do this turn. I've only got one cart and I can't afford to buy another one, and I'm in this location and I want to go over to the road, and next to the road is the farm or the village, so I'm going to have to go to one of those because it's adjacent. So that's going to be different every game as well. And the missions as well. There's a little draft at the beginning where you end up with a set of missions to try and go for. If you aren't filming it, you'll probably do a better job of going for them. Like I should have been putting way more stuff in the warehouse, and to that end, probably just trying to get a certain number of tiles every turn, just so I had stuff to put in the warehouse. Whether it's going to end up filling rows or not, just do it. And Marty should have been working out how to get on the road or do some more orders so he can get more corn. But yeah, it's an optional thing, and it's just a nice little extra guide on top of your roll and your action to start the game with. It's a nice little extra thing on top of that can give you some sense of what to do in the first few turns if you need to be first on something, or maybe as an aim towards the rest of the game. Like the one for Marty to have the most ore was fantastic for him because his role gave him the ability to generate ore quite easily. But yeah, I really think that apart from, you know, a little nitpick with the mission cards, I really enjoyed this, and yeah, it's just another fantastic big bag builder. I think it's absolutely different enough from Orleans to have both, and I want more. That's Altiplano. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and I'll see you for the next game. Bye.